southerly swell of around 2 metres provided testing conditions for the 6 finalists, with the now Western Australian-based Adam Player the favourite after convincingly winning his heats. Lee qualified for his 9th Classic final, along with fellow clubmates Paul Rostrom, Christian McCall, Andy Brinkworth and Daniel Frodsam. The final quickly developed into a 2-man battle, Lee and Frodsam evenly matched throughout the 30 minutes. So much so that the judges found it hard to separate the pair's best 4 waves, awarding the title and a trip to Bali to Lee on a countback. Frodsam was 2nd and Brinkworth 3rd. Damien Ido took out the over 28s and Tony Solaris the over 35s. The first of 7 heats was contested this morning in light conditions, with local Chris Russell proving too strong, finishing ahead of former national champion Chris Dean and Queensland's Warren Guinea. Current Australian champion and one of the favourites for the world title, Chris Storr, was 5th. Meantime, it was also the opening day of the VS Skiff National titles on Newcastle Harbour, with local boat Fab Art, skippered by Michael Northam, winning 2 of the first 3 heats. Sydney's Warren Cartwright and ISS won the other heat, with a further 15 heats to be staged over the next 6 days. This is Ridgy Didge, at work 12,000 feet above Corowa in the south of the state during last week's National Championships. All members of the Newcastle Sport Parachute Club, the team won the 4 and 8-way titles, but these high flyers won a crack at the world crown.
Ridgy Didge is Australian. As we all know, it means fair dinkum, and that's what we are. We're fair dinkum. We mean business, and we're going to prove it.
Falling at more than 200 kilometres an hour, the team has 50 seconds to complete its sequences, usually marked by judges using video. With the World Championships in France in September, the team will shortly begin training, a schedule that'll see members jump at Byron Bay and the United States.
We'll be training from May through to September, non-stop. Approximately 500 skydives, training skydives, and we're very confident in bringing home a medal for Australia.
Carly Thomas, another instructor from the Newcastle club, won his 3rd freestyle national title at Corowa. An Australian representative, he credits the club and its instructors for his and many other successes.
They're all competitive skydivers. And they've all done over 1,000 jumps, and they all represent Australia and at national and international levels, and are very successful.
It's a towering symbol of hope to a shipping industry that had been slowly dying. The skeleton of the shipyard will frame the operation that will produce 6 mine hunters by the year 2002. Mr. Armstrong headed the state's mine hunter task force and hasn't lost any enthusiasm for the project.
Darn good news how I'd like to look at it. It's a great cooperative operation between the local community, local employees, and also the local TAFE college, who's doing much of the training and the expertise.
The winning contractor, Australian Defence Industries, already employs 100 people in Newcastle, with 250 more workers to be added to the payroll by the middle of the year. There's a state election in the meantime, but the Deputy Premier is confident he'll be back to represent the government when work starts on the first hull in August. But the campaign won't be helped by accusations by the opposition that money for health has been diverted from the Hunter to help pay for improvements to St Vincent's Hospital in Sydney.
Rifshulgi is a typical Labor politician just telling lies. The fact has been an extra 46% through here. Look at the John Hunter Hospital, look at the new hospital for the Maitland region. And Mr Rifshulgi just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
When he was hale and hearty and full of life, Bryant Easterman headed off to see the world 2.5 years ago. Now he lies in hospital, gravely ill, after an Indiana Jones-style adventure went wrong. Caught in a flash flood in a remote jungle in eastern Peru, the young university graduate went into a coma after spending 25 days adrift in the piranha-infested headwaters of the Amazon. His brother Daryl flew to his aid.
He was very, very skinny and semi-conscious and looking very scruffy, covered in sores and cuts, and yeah, looking horrible.
The Easterman family then faced the bureaucratic and logistic nightmare of bringing Bryant home from Peru. They say efforts to get the Australian government to help failed.
To ring the officials, ring your government, just nobody wants to know. So, anybody that's thinking of travelling, if you think you're going to get your family home easy, it's not easy because you've got to find out for yourself.
After a month of wrangling, Daryl arrived back with Bryant on Saturday and his brother was admitted to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital.
This is the best place for him now. He doesn't respond to us at the moment, but he's alert and he's looking around and he's putting on weight, so he's on the road.
We've got no doubt at all that he'll come around. He didn't come all this way not to come out of it.
The Eastermans still have to find $46,000 to pay for Bryant's repatriation. Friends in Tamworth have rallied, setting up a trust fund to help raise the money.
Zephyrus arrived on the Gold Coast yesterday and had his first hit out on the track today. A full brother to Gosford slipper winner Cloudlet, Zephyrus was purchased at the Magic Million sale last year. And although he's had a light preparation for Saturday's race, was an impressive last start winner in Sydney. Jimmy Cassidy was on board that day, but due to commitments in Singapore which have since fallen through, Melbourne Cup winning jockey Wayne Harris has been given the ride for Saturday.
I'm pleased he's riding it really because he's a great rider, Wayne, and he's got his weight, he's got 55.5, that's about as light as Wayne can ride, so no, I won't be worrying about the jockey part of it.
Zephyrus may not be the only Lees-trained horse heading north of the border in the next 6 months, with 1994's Australian Mare of the Year Flitter now back in work. Lee's contemplating another winter campaign in Brisbane after last year's success.
Looks a treat really, it's the best she's ever done. So I just hope, being a 5-year-old mare, you don't know how they're going to come back, but she does look really the best she's ever looked.
Meantime, the Gold Coast Carnival gets underway tomorrow with the Grafton-trained Tamworth Gold Cup winner Loudspeaker one of the favourites for the Prime Minister's Cup, while the ever-popular old gent from Glen Innes, Tiny Finito, will carry the top weight of 57 kilos.
For most of these youngsters, it was their first time on the skis. A special week of activities at Myuna Bay Sport and Recreation Centre on Lake Macquarie.
If you look stupid, it doesn't matter, because the people before you look stupid as well.
They're part of Canteen, a support group for young people with cancer. Included in the team, family members and people who have won their battle with the disease.
Those that have been in remission can then be an inspiration to those that are undergoing active treatment.
The camp with teenagers from across the country is an opportunity for some to perhaps push a little harder than they might at home. And no one was looking back under the expert eye of former world and national water ski champions.
They're all willing to get out there and have a good go at it, and I'd say a 90% success rate.
Off the water and onto their bikes or to fencing or archery. Last night was a Priscilla Canteen Queen of the Desert night, and it seems whatever they do, they'll be having fun. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The starting gun for Heat 5 of the 7 Heat Championship. 60 catamarans fired up and aiming for the World NACRA title. Competitors like Hellraiser, Mongrel and Terminator. These are the speedsters of the lake, but for 4 times Aussie champion Chris Russell from Mount Hutton, with his partner Jeff Jordan, it's a smooth ride.
They're very stable, very comfortable, they've got no bad habits. It's like a real pleasure to sail them if you set them up properly.
Russell won the heat, his 4th, but the local sailor isn't getting it all his own way. Queenslander Warren Guinea on 5/8, named after league legend King Wally Lewis, isn't too far behind, with Peter Milliken on his tail. At 31 and with 9 years of NACRA sailing behind him, Russell is a veteran of the sport.
I'm the old man of the sport, you know. I guess I'm the one they try and knock off every time. Anyway, so yeah, I've been sailing longer than anyone in the country.
Racing continues tomorrow. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
When thousands of Westpac customers in the Hunter opened their mail in October, the bank had sent what it described as exciting news. 9,000 account holders were informed there would be changes. The good news included discounts on personal loans, higher interest rates, even free entry on the sweepstakes. The bad news? A $5 account keeping fee would be imposed on all accounts that fell below $1,500. When the bank came clean, customers were randomly selected as part of a trial. The airwaves ran hot.
And I intend to withdraw the 4 accounts that I have at Westpac and transfer them to another bank.
Surely there is an issue of disclosure here. I mean, gone are the days of marketing research with interviews and questionnaires, and surely they would have got the same feelings if they had have taken that approach than jumping in straight in and doing it.
Although sent a letter about the charge, customers say they were not told they'd be taking part in a 3-month trial of a new fee scheme Westpac has since dumped.
I'm apologising to any of those 9,000 customers who have been inconvenienced by either being in the trial or finding out today that they were a member of this test group.
But that's little consolation for those customers who say their bank has been deceitful and dishonest.
I think it's just another sign of how greedy banks are getting and how little regard they have for the average wage earner and man in the street.
The banks play an important role in society, and the last thing we want is that lack of trust between banks and the consumer. We want exactly the opposite, a good relationship.
Westpac says it won't be introducing the fee and all charges will be refunded to customers. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
With the track for Saturday night almost completed, some riders couldn't resist the chance to test it. It's one of the most demanding supercross courses in the country and will provide some spectacular action.
This track has got an enormous set of studded jumps, and it also has a tabletop that's something like 50 feet long, so it'll fling the riders high into the night air.
The 10-race series is worth $200,000 in prize money. Eager for their share are local hopes Danny Ham from Thornton and Craig Anderson of West Wallsend. At 16 years of age, they're billed as the hottest talent in the country.
There's Kim Askenazi. He's won the motocross series last year and the Peter Jackson series last year. I think he's going to be one to beat. There's Eddie Warren, Stephen Andrews. There's a whole heap of guys out there. It's going to be hard to beat, and hopefully I can beat them.
The caliber's the best in Australia, plus the best that we can find in America and Japan.
Also featured in the 48-rider lineup for the main 250cc event is American super tyro Fast Eddie Warren. Like Wimbledon, the riders have to be seeded and have to survive the qualifying rounds before the final decider between the top 24 riders over 20 laps. 200 competitors in several classes and age groups will compete. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
$180 volunteers work at Newcastle's Lifeline Centre, offering a friendly ear. More and more people are relying on the free 24-hour counselling service, the centre reporting a 20% increase in the past year.
And that's a fairly drastic increase when you think of the average phone call is around about 20 minutes.
Lifeline expects to answer nearly 19,000 calls this year and is looking for volunteers who are willing to give their time to help others.
We've been told that the drought is finished and the recession is finished, but the reality is that the drought has not finished and the recession has not finished. It is still affecting lives, it's affecting families.
While steering people in the direction of support agencies and organisations, Lifeline also aims to help those in need see light at the end of the tunnel.
And if we can help them to have faith in themselves again, to increase their own self-concept and self-esteem, we believe that that is doing the person more good than any amount of welfare help that we or anybody else could hand out to them.
The Greater Taree City Council is hoping construction on the proposed Woolworths complex will begin in May and be open to the public by Easter 1996. The plans include a Big W discount department store, a Woolworths supermarket and 40 specialty shops. The Director of City Planning agrees it will provide a degree of competition for existing retail stores in the centre of Taree.
It will have some local impacts likely in the rest of the town centre in the immediate term, but the important thing is it will help shore up Taree's status as a regional centre.
There will be 800 car parking spaces in 2 levels below the shops with separate access to Winter and Albert Streets. Woolworths is funding a planning study of the potential impacts of the centre on the local population. The development will provide more than 450 jobs in the Big W and Woolworths stores alone. Mr Gardner says it fits into the 1990 plan to expand the city centre.
The development will certainly help Taree maintain its status as a regional centre and help us to compete more successfully with places like Foster and Port Macquarie.
Tracy Walsh, NBN News. More than 100 people gathered at No. 1 Beach, Seal Rocks, this morning. The Department of Conservation and Land Management have proposed a plan of management on public exhibition until the end of next month. Those at the rally fear the proposed changes would destroy the character of the isolated village for a large-scale tourist development.
Areas such as bigger areas in Seal Rocks are sold off. I'd say you could possibly see things like motels, hotels, bigger tourist resorts.
The Save Seal Rocks Committee have proposed their own plan of management. It protects the coastline and rainforest areas from future development. Linda Gill, Greens candidate for the Myall Lakes, says beachfront areas like this should be included in the national park rather than the state recreation area.
Once you allow it to become a state recreation area, you then open the door or put the wedge in for a lot of development. And I think that's their main concern.
According to the Department of Calm's management plan, major car parking areas will be created. A tollway may also be introduced for everyone accessing the Seal Rocks Road. 50 people live permanently in Seal Rocks, a popular destination for day trippers. In holiday times, the population can increase to 500. The general sentiment at today's meeting was that people would like to keep the scenic area as it is. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Scientific police and work cover experts are investigating yesterday's explosion at Tomago.
It takes an accident like this for people to be aware that these things can happen and do happen.
The 61-year-old owner of Brown Marine Holdings, Edward Brown, was spray painting inside a small chamber on a pontoon. It's thought he may have knocked a fluorescent light, creating a spark, igniting paint fumes, causing the explosion. Mr Brown, a former Balmain rugby league player, was blasted through a manhole and 4 metres into the air. He suffered extensive burns. Paramedics worked to stabilise him on the scene. He was flown to the John Hunter Hospital and later transferred to Sydney's Royal North Shore. Work cover has warned people working with explosives or poisonous chemicals in confined spaces to take care.
It can be lethal. It's an unknown area. A little bit like electricity, you can't see what's in there. You've really got to make an assessment and determine what is in there before you get in there, or what could be in there with the type of work you're doing.
Brown remains in a critical condition tonight. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Before today's final heat, Blazing Bacon, skippered by Russell, had won all but one race in the third 5.8 metre titles. His only loss in Heat 2 last Sunday, when gear failure forced him to retire. With Jeff Jordan's new addition to the family on the shores, Blazing Bacon was again unchallenged in the final race, winning from Queensland's Peter Milliken and Troy Forrest. Milliken also finished second in the World Championships, while last year's Australian champion Chris Dean from South Australia was third. The best placed international was Kiwi Grant Snowden, who finished 8th. With entrants allowed to drop their worst race from the 7 heats, Russell achieved a perfect 6 from 6, a feat only equalled in the class once before. Also on Lake Macquarie, the Diamond National Championships, with a trio of local entrants filling the first 3 places. Challenger, skippered by Jim Brooks, won the last heat to win the series from clubman David Nichols and Noel Jenkins. Meantime, Yandu, skippered by Sydney's John Winning, continues to lead the national 15-foot skiff series on Newcastle Harbour. With 3 heats remaining, the only crew which can catch Yandu is local Fab Art, skippered by Michael Northam. In their first year, the Eagles are on their way to achieving their goal of winning a quarter of their matches. With 24 to play, they only need 3 further victories to reach the milestone, but the major concern has been away performances. Although they've lost 12 one-run matches, the Eagles have won few on the road and will face the committed Cougars over the weekend. They must win to keep their playoff hopes alive, but are likely to be tested tonight, with Coach Hodge expected to use import pitchers Everett Stool and Neil Webber first up. Meantime, Greyhound Racing returns to Beaumont Park tomorrow for the first time since October. Concerned owners and trainers voted to maintain boycotts, but many have defied the ban to take part in the 10-race program. The first 4 races to be covered by the TAB. The group is now waiting to hear from the Minister for Sport and the Newcastle Jockey Club before it plans its next move, and does not intend to pick at tomorrow's meeting.
The thieves tried to break into the Pelican RSL club shortly after 4 o'clock this morning. It was a ram raid style attack, a car driven into the front doors of the club. But as the vehicle was pulling out, the front section of the building collapsed. Amazingly, only one resident living near the club heard the attempted robbery. An alarm alerted a security firm, police and the club's officers.
Well, when I got a phone call off the secretary manager, I just thought, you know, a window had been broken or something like that, but come around the corner and here's the front awning gone. Shock horror.
Police believe the thieves were scared off by the noise of the crashing glass and aluminium.
It's been aborted, yeah, and nothing at this stage has been taken that we can establish.
The car used in the attack was stolen over the weekend from Cardiff. It was found burnt out at nearby blacksmiths. Police are baffled by a rope that had been attached to the back of the vehicle. A similar length was also found at the scene. Police believe the thieves may have been planning to remove the cash machine from the club's foyer. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
In 1847, the Catholic Church established the Diocese of Maitland, which at that time was the hub of life in the Hunter. But times have changed. Later this month, the church will transfer its headquarters to Hamilton, where the Sacred Heart Church will be elevated to cathedral status. The former convent next door will be redeveloped to house the Bishop's office, as well as church agencies like the Catholic Education Office and the St Lawrence Centre. The move into Newcastle is designed to give the church and its administration a higher profile in the thick of Hunter life. It could also make very good economic sense, offering the church an ideal opportunity to rationalise its valuable property holdings. There's speculation about the soon-to-be vacated Catholic Education Office site, the 8,000 square metre property in Tyrrell Street, perched in one of the city's most sought-after areas.
Fantastic piece of real estate, very suitable in my opinion for medium density housing. Probably got a value in excess of $2 million, somewhere between $2 and $3 million seems appropriate for this particular timing.
The church has yet to finalise its property plans. It'll formally proclaim the Sacred Heart Church a cathedral on Saturday week, with an official ceremony to ordain coadjutor Bishop-elect Michael Malone in mid-February. Ian Cameron, NBN News. Leaked drafts of the federal government report paint a less than glowing picture of the state of Australia's marine environment. Citing a water quality crisis in most of our estuary systems, the report slates Tuggerah lakes over toxic plankton blooms and the long-standing heavy metal contamination in the northern waters of Lake Macquarie. According to the EPA, there's nothing new in the report. It says the report is largely based on already published EPA data without an assessment of new pollution control measures.
The inquiry for Pasminco last week indicated that the upper levels of the sediment in the northern end of Lake Macquarie have a lower level of contamination than the lower levels, and so that's a good news story in terms of improvement in recent years. But yes, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Mr Gilligan says while there's no room for complacency, people shouldn't suddenly become alarmed about water quality.
I think we need to be careful about leaked drafts of reports and pieces of those drafts. I think we need to make sure that we form our judgments based on the full report in all its context and the final version of it rather than a draft version.
The federal report is due for release next month. The EPA will follow with its own updated State of the Environment report in October.
It's nearly 5 months since David Waite was dumped by the Knights, but time hasn't healed the wounds between club and coach. Waite says the Knights delayed paying his salary for more than 2 months. He now claims he's owed more than $10,000 in long service leave and other entitlements.
Well, we have gone to the nth degree to seek counsel's advice in relation to the situation, and our legal advice, counsel's advice, is quite clear that we've met all of David's statutory obligations in total.
But Waite says he's served more than 5 years at the Knights, first as a development officer, then reserve grade coach, before assuming the top job. He says this entitles him to the usual benefits given to employees. It's just the latest in a series of running battles between the management and Waite. After months of speculation, the Knights board sacked Waite in October, replacing him with then Great Britain coach Malcolm Reilly.
I feel in some ways when it's got to my family the way it has over the last fortnight, and we won't speculate as to the reason why it's got to them the way it has, I find that a lot harder to cope with.
David Waite says a delayed sacking left him with no opportunity to get a position at another club. He's currently unemployed. The club and coach will be reunited briefly on February 27, although they'll be on opposing sides, with the matter to appear before the Chief Magistrate's Industrial Court in Sydney. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.